This is Guided by Wellness with Dr. Magnus Thorsson, your source for clarity on the science of cannabis wellness.
When most people think of cannabis, they think of THC. But the real story of cannabis lies in balance. CBD, CBG, and CBN, and terpenes working together to shape how we actually feel. For wellness seekers, sober, curious adults, and older consumers, this whole plant bouquet is the difference between overwhelm and clarity. In this episode, I'm joined by Casey Sturtz, a sales director at Lovewell Farms, to explore why CBD and minor cannabinoids matter in shaping consumer experiences, how the entourage effect creates balance beyond THC alone, the role of the experience framework in translating lab data into plain English guidance, and why consumer education and product data sheets build confidence and trust. Today, we're looking past THC potency. While THC dominates menus and marketing, many consumers are searching for functional benefits, stress relief, sleep, focus, or pain support without being overwhelmed. By reframing cannabis through the experience framework, we can highlight the value of CBD and minor cannabinoids, making cannabis approachable, transparent, and wellness-driven. Joining me today for this conversation is my guest, Casey Sturtz from Lovewell Farms. Casey is the sales director for Lovewell Farms, a USDA-certified hemp farm in Rhode Island. Lovewell is known for premium CBD-rich flower and full-spectrum products crafted in support of wellness without overwhelming psychoactive effects. Casey advocates for consumer education and believes in the power of cannabinoids beyond THC. I'd like to welcome my guest, Casey Sturtz, and I want to ask you if you could first, for our listeners, introduce yourself and tell us how you came to the cannabis industry.
Sure. Yeah, well, thank you for having me. First of all, I'm excited to be here and to talk to you and share stories and whatnot. So I came to cannabis first in high school when my older brother shared a joint with me. And so, yeah, pretty much from that point on, it would be hanging out with friends and smoking joints or blunts or whatever. And that was kind of my introduction to it. And then, yeah, it all unfolded from there. It's definitely been a part of my life pretty consistently since then, and it's something I have used recreationally, medicinally, it's come in and out of my life, but it's definitely been a thread throughout my life since I kind of was first introduced to it. So I'm super happy to be a part of the industry and to be able to work professionally in this space. It's something that, growing up, didn't really seem like a career option for me. Legalization, and now most of the country at this point is in a place where we have legal cannabis, and so it's been really cool to see the evolution take place since, back then being a high schooler and buying weed black market or legacy market, and then getting into buying and selling, and then here I am now. So
tell us a little bit about your job, your world with Lovewell Farms.
Yeah, certainly. So I guess how I got to Lovewell is kind of important too in the story, because I kind of came into it with a lot of experience. I moved to California after college, and I started working in the cannabis industry out there. And I worked for a company that was pretty well established in California. It's called CannaCraft, and we had anywhere from 7 to 9 brands at any one time, under this same umbrella. And so I was in sales with them. And I gained a lot of experience there, and it was just really good exposure to the legal industry and selling in this legal market. Obviously, California's way further ahead of the East Coast in terms of an established market and a regulated market. So I kind of learned a lot out there, and I'm a surfer, so, naturally I had to spend some time in California and live in that space. But yeah, once I moved back to the East Coast, it kind of felt really natural for me to stay in the industry and be a part of the emerging industry here because, I gained so much experience out there, and then to bring it back home basically and to be able to share all that with the people here and kind of almost have like a little head start, it felt like, when I did come back home. So yeah, got to Rhode Island and pretty quickly found Lovewell, which at the time and still now is a startup. Rhode Island, we have 7 dispensaries right now. That number is going to be increasing next year, but it's still a super new market and a new space. So yeah, at Lovewell right now, I'm director of sales, so I manage our sales team, but I also am active member of the sales team, so still actively doing sales myself, managing my own accounts, finding new accounts, and etc. So yeah, it's been a journey, but it's super fun, and working with Lovewell has been great. I mean, we, again, like I said, we're a startup, but we're also a startup working in a very specific niche, which is CBD dominant products. It's definitely a small segment of the market and definitely a niche in the market. So it's been really interesting and cool to be a part of it.
Right. So you talk about being in a CBD dominant niche, which is interesting because my first question to you is why do you think the industry has focused so heavily on THC, and what are they not seeing?
Yeah. So, I mean, my theory with this, and I'm sure there's people who would agree with me out there in the world, but I think the reason that THC initially gained so much attention and kind of traction in the market was because of the prohibition. Like, cannabis became illegal, so a lot of people started growing cannabis indoors, and I think that has a big part to play in the whole focus on THC. Growing indoors actually allows you to produce very THC heavy, THC dominant plants. It's actually like those conditions best for producing these very potent THC plants. A big part of that is because of terpenes. So in outdoor growing, you actually end up seeing a lot more terpenes in the plants themselves because the plant is facing much more resilience. There's more weather, there's wind, there's bugs, there are like all these different conditions that the plant's facing, and when the plant has to go through these different things, it actually produces a higher terpene content. The terpenes are a reaction to things that are happening to the plant. So in a very controlled environment, which is an indoor grow, the plant's not taking in all these elements, not having to be as resilient, and so it's not producing as many terpenes, and when it doesn't produce as many terpenes, the THC is actually able to reach higher levels. Terpenes actually almost suppress the THC production in a way. I'm not using the most scientific terms to explain this, but this is my general understanding. So I think that naturally the indoor plants were had a higher THC content, and then because of that, everybody's growing indoors, they had to place value on these plants. So we have like all these indoor plants, like how are we going to place value on it? Well, we could place value on it by a THC percentage. So people started thinking higher THC percentage, higher value, better plant, better product. But, people are starting to learn and understand now that those two things don't necessarily correlate, and obviously we'll get into more of that within this discussion, but yeah, I think people are starting to understand there's a big difference between, a THC percentage and a quality product. So those two things are not one and the same.
I'm thinking as I'm hearing you describe this that it's almost as if you compare an indoor grown tomato, factory grown indoor tomato versus what you grow in your garden that gets all the attention and sun and all the nutrients and is a much, much tastier tomato. We can actually think about cannabis in the same way. I've heard it echoed what you say, that THC became the metric that everyone was trying to go after, and the plant was basically beaten into submission to produce THC at the cost of terpenes and other cannabinoids. You are describing it scientifically enough for us. Thank you for that. So then let's talk about your end of the spectrum, the CBD and minor cannabinoids. So what role do they play in the balance for the consumer?
Yeah, so I have like a little analogy for this question and this kind of topic to just kind of like give another perspective or way of thinking about it, because I think for a lot of people cannabis profiles, what's in the plant, like it's all kind of foreign to like so many people out there. People who have been using cannabis for a long time, but also people who are just trying it for the first time. Like, no matter what your level of exposure to it is, I think there's so much that people need to learn and you know, haven't even heard about yet. So for me, I like to think of it like tea. So I have this immunity tea here that I take if I'm a little sick, or you know, I need a little boost to the immune system. And the immunity tea has all like 5 or 6 different herbs in it. So there's licorice root, ginger, echinacea, ginger, astragalus. So all these different herbs, right? And I kind of think of that when I think of cannabis. It's like, I'm not looking at just THC or just CBD or just like one isolated part of the plant. I want to look at the plant and the profile as a whole and as a spectrum. Like, what is in this? Like, what is in this that I need right now? Or, you know, what is this going to give me that's going to boost my wellness as a whole? Or whatever the case may be, whatever I'm looking for, like, I'm looking at a profile that's going to kind of match that. Like, I'm not going to go to the store and go buy green tea if I want sleepy time tea. You know, it's like, you have to like find what you need and kind of like gauge it off of that. So yeah, I mean, to kind of come back to the topic, like all these minor cannabinoids and these other, you know, the terpene content and the other parts of the plant out, like other than just the THC, which is what we kind of started the conversation on, like they're all gonna have these other benefits and create this like spectrum of benefits and wellness and effects that, you know, just one thing gonna get from just sort of like one very potent in one direction product would give you. So yeah, that's kind of how I like to think of it. I mean, I don't know. What about you, Magnus? What do you like to?
I'm thinking as I'm hearing you say this, you know, when I was in the kitchen and we were making sauces and or cooking food, the more middle you build, the more bouquet you have, the better the outcome of the sauces was. And I'm seeing the parallel in cannabis, because if you're looking for an entourage effect, if you're looking to heighten the experience and modulate the THC, you have to have at least some of the minor cannabinoids in there to balance your experience. So yeah, it rings true to me. But then how does this affect wellness or sober curious consumers? How does this impact them?
Yeah, so I mean, that I would say wellness is such a broad term, right? And so for me, I really think of it like, again, back to the green tea versus sleepy time tea, just kind of like really trying to understand what you do need or what you do want from this experience. You know, even with the bud tenders and in the retail space, I think about this a lot. Just having that like really open line of communication with the patient or the, recreational users even as well, like somebody who may be sober curious, well, what is it that you do want? Like what is it that you are looking for? So I think it's really important to sort of work through that and figure that out, because that is so different for every person, like what may be wellness to one person may look different to someone else. So I think that's super important to think about and be intentional about and really try and understand, because for me personally, I can give you my personal experience and my perspective. When I look at wellness for myself and look at what do I need to feel good and to kind of boost my daily routine or whatever it may be, that to me looks like something that is very not very harsh on me psychoactively. I like to have a full body experience. I like to have a subtle experience. I don't want to feel like any like really intense like reaction. So for me, I like to have like some very like typically a higher CBD, a higher minor cannabinoid content, and a little bit of a lower THC, because that psychoactive effect, if I'm in my daily life, I don't really want to have too much of that. So I mean, our bodies have an endocannabinoid system within them, and so taking cannabis is good for a whole like plethora of things. And so even just taking cannabis daily can be helping you in so many ways that you may not even know or understand. That's what I mean about like really doing the research and really defining what wellness means to you, what you do need in your life, and then trying to kind of cater it to that, just like back to the tea and back to the herbs. If you're going to an herbalist and you're looking for something to boost, wellness, well, what aspect of wellness? What is it that you want to kind of like enhance or, cater to? And then the herbalist will give you 5, 6, 7 herbs or some sort of a mix to help you with that. So it's the same with a cannabinoid profile, finding like what is that range that you need, what do you want to be dominant in the products that you're taking.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is the cannabinoids are almost like vitamins. Depending on what you are lacking, you can. And I heard you talk about the endocannabinoid system. And the endocannabinoid system, which touches all of our 11 life systems in the body, works to modulate, regulate, and bring the body into homeostasis, into balance. And if you need added supplements for sleep, a CBN is going to work well for you. If you need to relax, CBD is going to work well for you. And I mean, I'm particularly interested in, when we talk about sober, curious people, giving up alcohol, there's first the physical component of addiction. The second thing is the ritual. And I feel that CBD flower with a nice bouquet that you can smoke in a bowl or in a joint is going to give you that body relaxation without absolutely any psychoactive impact. So it is a versatile product. So yes, so it does, I think, work in those ways as you described it. Thank you for that. So what about stories that you've heard from customers who are enjoying your CBD-rich flower from Lovewell?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, for me, it's been really eye-opening and interesting to hear and get that feedback from people. I would say that the biggest thing is that no matter what, your thing is, or what you like to do, or what products you like to use, I feel that everyone that I've heard who has incorporated CBD in some way has really like enjoyed the experience of it. And maybe some people, it's not something that they want to add to their daily thing, but it's something that has benefited them in some way. So, even people who really do like to have THC dominant flower, and that's really their focus, and that's what helps them. and that's what they need in their life. You know, even those people, I've had feedback where they've tried the mix of CBD and THC, and the CBD, it enhances the THC as well. They really do work together, and so that experience was really good for those people who, you know, are used to just really having the THC dominant products. The CBD gives you that more full body effect, so it's taking that super psychoactive effect and it's bringing it into the body. And so I think, yeah, people really do enjoy that experience. I would say in terms of the products that are really good CBD dominant with not as much THC, I would say topicals. It seems that a lot of people really find the CBD dominant topicals to be much more effective than, you know, a more THC dominant topical. But yeah, I would say overall, like, it's been really good feedback. I think a lot of people lost faith in CBD dominant products when we had this explosion of the, you know, federally legal hemp derived products, and then they started mass producing these products, industrial grown hemp, and just very, very low quality, poor quality CBD. So it really like created this explosion of low quality products. And so people kind of took that stigma for a while and kind of lost trust in some of these products. And I think now, I mean, definitely with Lovewell, we're definitely showing people like a new light and a new way, and kind of, you know, what it is supposed to be and what a quality product is and what it means to be vertically integrated and to, you know, have control over the whole process and growing and manufacturing and being able to really put a quality product out there. Because that's a big feedback we always get, actually, is just like the quality of the products as compared to some of the other CBD products we've tried. Like, these just are so much better, the quality is so much better, and yeah, it's because of the way we're growing. And I really do want to emphasize that to consumers, like, really get to know who's producing the products that you're taking. Like, you are putting these things in your body. So I really encourage you to do your research, like, look into these companies, look into their growing practices. At the end of the day, this is a plant, and so it really is important to know how is that plant being grown and how is it being cared for, and, you know, what is their process.
Yeah, and you know, there's a couple of things that have stood out to me recently in an interview I did with somebody who's been smoking for a number of years, and they said to me, back in the days, we would find CBD flower to smoke in between sessions to keep us going so that we wouldn't get too high. And so that's one aspect of it. And as you well know, we have chosen Lovewell Farms as our supplier for CBD flower because we believe, precisely as you say, in the story. We want to know where it comes from. And true is the fabulous bouquet of terpenes and flavonoids that come with outdoor grown flowers. So all of what you're saying is true. And the modulation that CBD provides against THC alone, it sort of regulates the party. It turns the music down a little bit so that the cops don't get called. You know, that kind of keep the party under wraps. So let me ask you this. How does Lovewell approach creating products that highlight the whole plant bouquet?
Yeah, so with Lovewell Farms, like I said, we're vertically integrated, so we grow all of our own flower and we extract and we produce all of our products from, you know, that distillate that comes from our crop, that comes from the plants that we grow. So, you know, with Lovewell, we focus on full spectrum products. So we want to have that whole plant, all the benefits of having the terpenes, having the full spectrum of cannabinoids in the end result. So yeah, all of our products are made in that way. The root of what we do is cultivation, and we're producing high quality smokable CBD flower that's, it has a really good profile and it's tasty, and like you said, it's outdoor grown, so it's got really good terpenes in there, and yeah, so that's what we're really doing. That's the root of what we do. And then beyond the smokable flower, everything else, like all the smalls, everything underneath that top really tasty bud, we extract. And so yeah, even our distillate, it's a really high quality distillate. It's a high quality extract, and we use that in our topicals, we use it in our tincture, all of our products that are not the smokable products. So
right, and in our gummies too.
Yeah, and the gummies.
Exactly.
Yep.
So let me focus on questions of sales and sellability. So you have experienced the experience framework. You've seen the experience framework. Can you tell me how that might help consumers better understand the effects of products?
Yeah, I think the experience framework is a great way for people to get introduced to like that spectrum like we're talking about, and kind of like what's out there for them, and like what can they come to for their different wellness needs. Yeah, I think it's great. I think that, like I said, everybody is different in what they do need, and so this is just like such a good guide for people to be able to gain that understanding. And maybe they don't even know what they need yet, so coming to this in a way of like exploring and learning more. And I think that's really important. It's important to be intentional about what you're doing, what you're putting into your body, how your body is reacting to that, and just like gaining more awareness and understanding of really what you need. And so I think that's what the experience framework is really for, is being a guide for people and helping people learn more about what their individual needs are and kind of what they're looking for.
Right. And so if we think about cannabis as an experiment, you talked about it being an experiment. People have to find what's going to work for them. And in the current retail market, there's no flower under 17% THC. There are no pre-rolls under the same number. So that's the starting point. It's there or nowhere. But with the experience framework, as you said, it's tiered and it breaks it down. So if you want to start at 8.5%, or if you want to take a flower and mix it with CBD, you can. So the experience framework basically opens up more starting points for consumers, so that it's not as much trial and error as is right now. And then the product data sheets and the QR codes that are connected to every product that contains Lovewell and Bonsai, in this case, in the Canna Curious product line. How do you think the product data sheets connected at point of sale help with consumer trust?
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge thing. And I mean, honestly, this is another learning curve, right? That consumers are going to have to understand and kind of get more familiar with over time. I mean, we're lucky now in the regulated market that we have these tools, and so let's use them, right? I think that having that data is just another way for consumers to gain that understanding and really get familiar with the products that they're taking, putting into their bodies, and, being able to have more transparency and really just know what you're taking. I think just as important though as that, and as the COAs and the thing itself, is, like I said earlier, the research into what are the growing practices, what's the internal, what is that story, I think is just as important as what are the results. Because you can have two identical test results, but one may be, growing in this way and the other is growing in this way, and which way do you resonate with more? I truly do believe that, that's actually really important, because these are plants, they're living things. And so that whole process, like you're taking that into your body. And I think that all that has an impact. So it's really important to be intentional and to be aligned with, what you're buying.
Right, and you know, I had this conversation with Stuart from Pura Vida. We were talking about the COA and access by everyday consumer. And between Stuart and myself, we both have PhDs in science, and we agree that the COA is not very approachable. And the reason behind the product data sheets that are connected through a QR code is to basically make it more approachable so that consumers can actually make that choice themselves and can, as you say, know what they're putting into their bodies in a better way. Absolutely. Well, I wanted to say then, so my last question to you is going to be, what advice would you give bud tenders and retailers about talking with consumers about balance as opposed to potency?
Yeah, so I think I touched on this in the beginning. Really, I think the biggest thing is understanding what the customers are looking for, understanding the individual needs of that person, and then also quality, right? Like we've associated a percentage with the value for a long time, and I think it's time that we move on from that and start associating quality with value. So quality may mean a lower percentage product can be a quality product, you know, like a higher percentage doesn't mean that's a higher quality. So quality needs to be measured by all the things we've been talking about. What are the practices? What is the balance? What's the profile? You know, what are the terpenes in this plant? Terpenes have a huge effect. And actually, you know, at this point in time, we're seeing a lot of people who really believe terpenes are the main thing that we should be paying attention to when we're talking about the actual effects that we're having. So I would say just understanding what the people need, understanding what they're looking for, and then like offering a quality product as opposed to just what's the highest percentage, you know, product. So really trying to get away from that.
Right. And you know, if you come in with a particular question, the answer cannot always be THC. Right. It just can't be. And as we've discussed on the show, and we've beaten this ad nauseum, sativa and indica are not good indicators for what the consumer should be asking for. Anyway, I would like to also, every guest I have on, I speak of a myth with them, and then we sort of dig into trying to peel the layers of the myth. The myth that I wanted to bring to you, of course, they're always guest specific. So as the sales manager for a CBD forward brand, the myth is minor cannabinoids have little value beyond THC. So we know this, that many people don't focus on and do not pay attention to minor cannabinoids, as we see in many of the products that are stocked by the dispensaries. So what would you say to this, that minor cannabinoids have little value?
I would say, you know, do your research, right? Like if that's a viewpoint, I mean, I would say that's like the same thing as saying like THC has no value, you know? Like I think it's really just a blanket statement that isn't based in reality or based in research or anything like that. I mean, it's constantly they're finding all these new things that minor cannabinoids can help. I just heard something recently about CBG helping with appetite, whereas THC has been a dominant cannabinoid in that space for appetite. People who, you know, have no appetite and need to, you know, increase that. And so I just heard about CBG being good for appetite, and, you know, somebody who wants to be hungry but doesn't want to be high, perfect, you know, like that's a perfect solution there. So yeah, I think there's constantly things like that are coming out, and the more time goes on and the more people are able to do research and have real studies that are showing some of these things, then yeah, that'll be easily busted.
Yeah, well, and in the same vein, now that you talk about CBD being effective at stimulating appetite, THCV, research has shown that people who take THCV and CBD combined have actually experienced loss of appetite, similar to Wegovy and Ozempic. And this research has shown that people actually lost both girth and weight over a 30-day trial using two minor cannabinoids, or a minor cannabinoid and a major cannabinoid, CBD and THCV, and it was very effective at suppressing hunger and suppressing appetite. So absolutely right. There is so much more that we can do with the minor cannabinoids outside of THC, and THC doesn't have to be there. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to answering my questions and being here with us. And I look forward to seeing you out there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. We should do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks. Emerging research shows that CBD, CBG, and other cannabinoids provide distinct effects, mood balance, focus, anti-inflammatory support that enhances or moderate THC impact. Together with terpenes, they create a fuller, more tailored cannabis experience. So we're gonna count this one as busted. Key takeaways from today's conversation: CBD and minor cannabinoids aren't extras. They are essential to the balance effect most consumers actually want. By using the experience framework, dispensaries can highlight the value of the whole plant and empower shoppers to choose based on how they want to feel, not just a THC number. When menus shift from potency to outcomes, cannabis becomes accessible to a wider audience. Balanced products supported by clear labeling and education give consumers the confidence to explore and help dispensaries expand their customer base with loyal, wellness-driven shoppers. Thanks for joining me and Casey on Guided by Wellness. Understanding the role of CBD and minor cannabinoids helps us use cannabis not just as a product, but as a pathway to clarity, balance, and intentional use. Next time, we'll look deeper at how the budtender can use the experience framework to create trusted consumer relationships and drive long-term growth. Do you use CBD or balanced product as part of your wellness routine? Share your experience with us. We may feature your story in a future episode. Until next time, stay curious and keep guiding with wellness in mind. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Guided by Wellness. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.